Mr. Ruben Merre, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Very well. How are you today?
I can't complain. It's nice and sunny outside, but we're sitting in a dark little studio with a lot of bright lights, so can't say I'm appreciating it. But I know we've met a couple of years ago at Sigma, I believe it was. But for the audience that don't know who you are, just give us a bit of background on who you are and what the hell it is you do in the space.
Sure. So my name is Ruben. Start with that. I'm a lifelong learner. So I just keep on soaking up knowledge, and that's one of the things I do. And I read a lot of books. I learn a lot of stuff. And it all comes together for me in what my actual purpose is. My purpose is financial empowerment. So I try, for me it's about creating, innovating, inventing new things, and always striving higher personally so that I can have a bigger impact on a positive sense in people's lives. So one of the first projects I did was automated wealth management platform so that you could actually with $1,000 already invest in a very strong automated portfolio versus, let's say, people who have a wealth manager privately with a minimum amount of 500,000. So my idea was to empower the man next door that he could have the same portfolio. That's a long time ago. And then when I joined the crypto space, I found the niche of security through one of my co-founders who was severely hacked. And so we actually vowed to build the ultimate security solution for digital assets. With rule number one, we will never compromise on our security. And we've been working on that for 6 years now, or rather I would have to say we jump out of our beds every day with a smile depending on the day, but because we know we're protecting more people. And so financial empowerment from the past has now become basically the same within the crypto space, and we want to ensure that you can never lose your assets and that you actually indisputably own your assets so that nobody can ever, in a way whatsoever get access to.
Okay, so that's a big problem which you're trying to tackle, right? I mean, the cybersecurity threat, I think, in the crypto space is unique, right? Because everyone else besides banks loses data, and crypto companies or individuals lose money, right? So, what is it at Ngrave that you do differently that enables this kind of security?
Yeah, so we started with a very simple principle in mind. We never compromise our security. So the first thing we looked at was, okay, how do wallets work? And obviously, the moment that, let's say, a hacker can attack you, he can steal from you. So for us, that's what it all came down to in the beginning. We could only build a wallet that was 100% offline. So there was no room for 4G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, no USB connection, nothing whatsoever of that sort.
So a standalone cold wallet.
Exactly. So fully air-gapped, as we call it in the industry.
Yeah.
So that there is no connection that can be attacked, that can be used to perform an attack.
Exactly. And this is I think like one of the arguments I give to the security problem with centralized exchanges, right? Like if you can see something, then you can take a shot at it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's sort of one of the reasons why sexes are such big targets in the industry. But okay, so you went down the sort of cold wallet route. What then?
Yeah, so obviously the next question we had was, how do you update the device? Because if you don't update it, it's going to be irrelevant tomorrow. And we decided to build this device from scratch and look end to end at the security journey that the user has. So it starts with how do you create keys, how do you then have access to the associated accounts, but also what happens if tomorrow you drop dead and your kids need access to your crypto. So we really wanted to do one end-to-end journey. Two, every single point of that journey needed to be uncompromising on security. And three, we also, let's say, in a way, are Apple fanboys. So we, from the perspective of it needs to be simple, it needs to be easy to use, it needs to be sexy. And so those were the three guiding principles that we took very close to our heart. And on the wallet level, one thing that we did that is also unique in the world is we went for a certification level of the software that currently has a security certification referred to as Common Criteria EAL7. So every chip on the planet that's supposed to be a secure chip has a certification for this level. You will find most of them at level 5, that's government level. Level 6 is where you will find the most secure bank. And our Zero Cold Wallet has firmware, secure firmware that has level 7. So we are the only one in the world making the device basically the most secure financial solution you can actually keep your.
Okay, and educate me a little bit in terms of this security standard. Because like say I'm familiar with something. Let's say take something simple like ISO, for example, right? Or you're doing SOC 2 or some other PCI DSS, right? Those are the sort of simple and standard stuff. In this situation, who is the auditing body?
Yeah. So let's say the certification of common criteria is globally accepted. So if you go to the US, you go to France, you go to Germany, they all have accepted the standards. Therefore, also every secure chip in the world, every secure element, as we call it in hardware, is certified for this. And once you have a secure element, the purpose of it is to create keys within the chip and to never expose them.
Sure.
And you can securely sign transactions. Where it becomes really interesting is when you look at cold wallets today, Trezor, until recently, let's say the last 10 years, they did not have a secure chip in the device because these chips have no open source code. So, and their philosophy is everything needs to be open source. So they had to resort to a chip that actually allowed a standard hardware hacker to break open the device, get the keys out in about 10 minutes.
Yes, no, I can totally see the, let's say, use case of utilizing closed source software for something like this, as well as a certification. But what I've learned in terms of, let's say, certifications as a whole and cybersecurity, I think is just sort of one of the examples, right? Is that there's a body which governs the certification process, and that body always has some kind of agenda, whatever that agenda is, right? It could be positive, it could be something negative. So, talk to me about the certification process. Like, do you need to run an external audit? If so, is that conducted by I don't know, like a company? People might know. What's the process?
Yeah, I mean, the certification of it is one of the most complex things I see, I think. So it comes down to penetration testing, but also formally verifying the code. So, I mean, it's all about...
So you need to do an external pen test?
Exactly. It's like how well is it documented, how well is the code built, how well is it...
And if it's an external pen test, do you know if it's black box, white box or grey box, or just one of those protectives count?
It depends. I would have to go back in time and refresh my own memory.
Fair.
But yeah.
But fair, okay. So let's move on from the certification stuff. The point is that you take security seriously, right? So I imagine there are a couple of other certifications which you've also achieved. What do those look like?
Well, I would say for us right now, so we use, just like every other wallet, we use the secure chip. The secure chip we have is EAL5, just like, let's say, the bank-grade solutions.
Okay.
On top of that, so we built a device fully from the ground up to be a tamper-proof device. And the secure operating system that basically runs all the security-sensitive operations and it overarches everything. That's the thing on our side, that's EAL7. So every interaction you do with this device is basically the most secure, at least per certification, interaction you can have with the financial model. Fair.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna sort of like err on the side of naivety because I wouldn't say I'm entirely familiar with the MS cert. But let's move on to something which is I think a little bit more globally understandable, which is how do you handle private keys?
Yeah. So that was actually the first. That's step 0 as a user, right? And so when we dived into private keys as a concept, and let's say with our filter on of this needs to be secure, we were not happy with what we saw. And what we saw was there are no secure keys in the world right now. So you can go and look this up, and you will find so many sources about the backdooring of secure chips, the backdooring even of cryptographic algorithms, even elliptic curves had a backdoor.
For sure. It's exactly why the US banned Huawei, right? At the end of the day, I'm a supplier to the military, and I would say that doesn't even arguably solve the problem, right? Because if Foxconn is manufacturing practically the majority of the world's boards, then hey, I mean, as long as Taiwan remains on the side of the West, then the world is good, right?
Yep.
But sorry, I interrupted. Go back to the.
So the more we looked into it, the more we realized that chips have backdoors, and even if they wouldn't have backdoors, if you take your cold wallet, the first thing it does is it gives you a key, right? So it tells you here are 24 words, write them down. So if you just take the simple reflection of where do these words come from, has the manufacturer a database of all the keys that they will share with their users? We don't know. We don't know if it's yes or no, but we know that if it's not clear, then we need to do something to make sure that we ensure security. What we do know is that the chips themselves are backdoors. That's something that's basically a universal truth today in the hardware security world. And in the second year of Ngrave in 2019, I got into closer relationship with a gentleman named Jean-Jacques. So he's one of the references in the Bitcoin papers, one of the 8 people there. And his whole life has been dedicated to hardware security and cryptography. So he's currently probably celebrating closely to his 80th birthday. So he has more than 50 years of experience professionally in literally building the first smart cards in the world, being asked to backdoor chips. And so when I spoke with him about the whole thing, he could confirm that there are backdoors and how it works.
Absolutely. It's an industry, like it's a well-known industry secret, but unless you're in the industry, people think you're just a fucking conspiracies, right?
Yes.
That's the reality.
Yes.
But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. And so what we decided to do is actually quite simple. Okay, so this chip makes a random key. That key becomes your master key out which all your private keys are created. So, but we know the key is backdoored, so why don't we just add entropy from outside of the chip, even from outside of the device? So why don't we not, let's say we accept a certain amount of entropy, randomness from the chip, and we add entropy, randomness that comes from outside of the device. So in our case it
like
was
time as a factor, for example?
well, in our case specifically, we let's say one of the important ones is light. So we have a light sensor in our camera.
Okay.
Light happens to be one of the best sources of randomness.
Smart.
Another thing that we use is your biometrics. We use your fingerprint. Where I would say fingerprint is not really a very secure technology. It's not so random, but at least
But you're layering, right?
Yeah, we're layering, and the user gets this feel of personalization. And there are a few other things like that, and we sort of put that all together, so that in the very first step for the user, it's very simple. It's okay, my device is doing some things, and I get a key. So you resolve the backdoor of the chip, but of course the company Ngrave would still be faking the whole setup. With other wallets, you just get a key. In our setup, the next step is that you can interact with the key generation process, so that in the end, by a few manipulations, you know that even the manufacturing company Ngrave has no clue of what that key is.
And how can that ever be guaranteed, though? Like, explain that part to me.
Yeah, so I mean, we can only to a certain reasonable extent help you as much as we can with making that key personal. So we cannot predict what your manipulations will be of the key. But in the end, you always still have a bit of a source of trust, because you can go quite far in simulating things and still being able to brute force whatever the keys were made. But we go as far as we can to make it as possible for the user to do these manipulations. Because if we would give him free rein, then he would be psychologically predictable. People are too predictable. They will make a key with first a 1 and a 2, and it will always come back, even if you think you don't. So for us, that's sort of the philosophy, is really how far can we help in making it as secure as possible. And
okay, so talk to me about key recovery. Like, how does that process work at the moment?
Yeah, so if you're familiar with 24 words, then is that something I can speak about here?
The mnemonic phrase, absolutely.
For the audience?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So in the end, the computer speaks one language, zeros and ones. So the keys that the computer makes, the chip makes, is 256 zeros and ones. Nobody can write that down and then remember and even write down properly. So Trezor was the first hardware wallet. and they actually came up with the 24-word concept. And so you have a list of 2,048 words, and you get a random sort of picking of 24 words out of there. In Trevor's case, it's 12. And we like the idea a lot. It does give a bit like the false ID that you can remember them, and probably something will go wrong over time there. And we also didn't like the way backups work. Like the backup we have today is either a piece of paper, which you can, let's say, cut down in 2 parts of 12, 4 parts of 6, so you can sort of, to some extent, split it up. Alternatively, you can put it on a metal plate, something like that. So we were thinking, how can we, first of all, make it durable? So we made 2 stainless steel plates of the highest quality. The second is what happens if somebody finds my key? So if somebody finds your 24 words, they know everything. If they find 12 words, they have 12 left to brute force, which at some point will become feasible. So we decided to bring in a layer of encryption. And in our setup, so let's say only when these 2 plates are together, you can actually see the pattern of your key. And the beauty about it is, one, you can keep those 2 plates separate. And second, if you lose one of the plates, the plate becomes recoverable. So we can help you in recovering one of those plates.
Okay, and like go into the plate part again with me specifically. So like where is this plate specifically in the hardware there?
Yeah, so the plates are separate from the device, of course.
Okay.
So once you have your key, and we actually, we talked about key generation.
Okay.
In that process, we invented and patented a new key generation process.
All right.
And this thing creates what we called the Ngrave perfect key. The format is different than 24 words. It's 64 hex, so it's like each character has 0 to 92 have as possible options, and in the end it's 64 characters that together represent the exact same zeros and ones as the words.
But that are of course much more resilient to brute forcing than traditional mnemonic phrase.
Well, that's the same. It's both the same entropy, it's both the same randomness, so it's the same difficulty of trying to brute force.
To be fair, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Fair point.
Yeah. And so, but the reason why the perfect key is so important in terms of format is, one, you cannot just change things around in a 24-word key, because the last word is a checksum word.
Okay.
So with our 64 characters, you can change around a lot, and the key will still be a valid key.
Yeah, because you're abstracting of the original key, right? So the 64 words don't really matter, of course. Yeah. That makes sense.
So that's the first thing, and then the second thing is where it really starts to shine is in that backend. So we have 2 plates. So the lower plate is a plain sheet where they're, let's say, just a standard stainless steel plate that you can put on a table. And then there's a second plate, and that's where...
By a plate, we're literally talking like a round plate.
It's a flat plate. It's
okay.
Literally like A5 format, so it's a small flat plate. And the second plate is a plate that has 64 columns.
Okay.
Each column represents 1 character of your key.
Okay.
And each column has all the possible values. So it has 0 to 92 FS values.
Okay.
Next to each character there is a hole. And so you will be able to, with our sort of a specialized pen that we built, you just put it in the hole where it shows the right character. Of course, every character in a column is scrambled, so it's not like it's not 0 to 92 F, but it's
randomized, but those are the list of total values basically.
Exactly, and so you just put, let's say if your first character of the key is a 5, you go to the number 5, and you put your in the hole next to it. You put your punch pen, you just give it a slight punch, and it will exert the power to make a hole. So what happens is suddenly you will see 64 holes appearing. But only with this unique upper plate, you will be able to decrypt the 64 holes in this lower grid that you made.
Exactly. So that's really smart. So you basically like grab the concepts of MFA and abstraction and encryption and just kind of mix them all together, right? You said, listen, possession usually, which is one of the factors in MFA, is usually just possession of the device. And you're saying, listen, no, we're going to break this down. We're going to say you need to hold 3 parts here. You need to hold the Ngrave device, right? And then you need to have the 2 separate plates. So that's one. Then there's the the knowledge part, which I'm assuming you sort out when the user logs into the Ngrave device itself. And then there's added entropy and randomness that you're creating through these two different plates, and you make sure that a transaction can never be a mistake, because there's so many deliberate subsequent steps which need to take place that that it can never be a mistake. So, okay, I really like what I'm hearing so far, and I can't say I usually have these reactions in the security space, in the blockchain industry specifically. So that's I'm happy to hear. So I'm gonna take a wild guess, and based off what you've told me, assume that your target market is financial institutions and larger companies that need to sort of either treasury management or move crypto around at an institutional level rather than an individual level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so in terms of vision, that's exactly true. In terms of how we wanted to build towards the institutional segment, so for us, phase zero was always was always the retail market. So
that's the dream.
Yeah, and we cover the more like a premium segment in the retail market, where you would also expect an Apple. Whereas Ledger and other wallets actually cover a different segment. So we're unique in this premium segment. So we literally say we built this for serious crypto investors. So you have some money to put away, you want to do it in the most secure way, you want to do it in a way that's easy to do, but also in a way that it's everything you do is verifiable. So if you look at a Ledger, Trezor, the incumbent wallets that have been around for a long time, it's all about USB connection or Bluetooth, which are dangerous in terms of attack vectors.
For sure.
But also you always have a black box. Like you don't know what's going on in those.
Exactly.
So what we do is we give you a device, the Zero, that can scan QR codes with a camera and can show QR codes on the screen, and your phone, which can do the same. And so the first thing you ever do once you've set up your device is you just show a QR code on your device. It shows the public keys, so the addresses that you can scan with your phone, and immediately your app will have access in real time to all the view options for your balances. And what's so powerful about QR codes is everybody in the world, especially in crypto, scrutinizes solutions like to the extreme. So they will scan our QR codes and they will be able to tell the whole world that we're hiding information in them. So that's the beauty about QR codes, because you get this kind of white box experience.
Yeah.
Everybody can call us out if we're doing something we shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
With Ledger, I think it's important to mention is that last year around this time, they literally proved the opposite, which is they launched their Recover solution and had to admit that we always had to trust them to not extract our keys from our device, because they have a bi-directional communication channel, a black box, and suddenly they had to say, yes, indeed, we can extract it, and we can send it wherever it needs to be.
Exactly, which is ridiculous. Like that is again, I think it sort of goes back to what we were saying before, right? Of, you know, if you're outside of the security world, they're just conspiracies, right? But when you're in it and you actually see what's going on, you get a bit of a different perspective. And this was always like a serious worry of mine. I've had I don't know, 4 ledgers sitting at home for the past 5 years, give or take, and there is probably no way I'm ever gonna open them. And 2 reasons. My first reason was I was worried about something like this. My second reason was that, what do you mean I'm gonna stick something on a bunch of, like I'm gonna stick fucking crypto on basically a USB stick that, you know, someone's gonna drop some water on, or I live in the most humid country in the world, this chip is gonna get damaged and then I have no way to recover it. What the hell is the point? At least in your case, you've got the 2 metal plates, and I'm assuming the device itself is perishable, and the plates are what you can always, you know, because you can get your fucking private public key pair back from just those 2 plates. So the device, if I drop this device or I lose it or whatever, and I'm holding, you know, a couple of whatever, decent amount of Bitcoin on it, I don't want to trust it to some purely electronic device. It would be stupid. So I think Ledger, like they play an interesting role in the market, but I almost feel like in many ways they could be doing more harm than good. Again, I haven't spoken to the founders yet. I haven't, so you know, I sort of I think it's unfair to attack someone who isn't here to defend themselves. But hey, maybe we'll bring them on at some point and see what happens. But no, so far I really like what I'm hearing. I like the approach you've taken to security and to private keys and to fairness at the end of the day, right? Like self-audit, for example, this concept of self-audit, right? Like if you're in the blockchain industry, if you followed Bitcoin for some time, it's like I go back to this idea and statement. I say that I think that there's a very big difference for people that came into the blockchain industry post 17 and pre 17, and I'm gonna go ahead and take a guess you came in pre 2017.
Came in around 2017.
Okay, cool. So far the theory still stands.
Yeah,
right?
my co-founders came in way before.
There you go. But the point is, you vibe with them because you share the same kind of philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you could have taken the ledger route and said, hey, you know what? Trust us, like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But you're like, hey, no, listen. There's ways that things should be done. There are massive existing problems in the industry, and if we do things the right way, then we can fix it. But I think that's a very important philosophy, which I think we're losing, like in the sort of current day and age. It's like the industry is maturing, and in a way, it's culling. You know, the way I see it is each and every cycle, there's bullshit culling, right? There's the ICO cycle, and let's talk about the 2017 days. So there's the ICO cycle, 90% get culled a few years later, and we're back to square one. Then we're at the NFT days, same thing. Now people don't trust NFTs, back to square one. And I think that's like the wallet scene is yet to see its day, I think, and that's similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's yet to have its sort of its culling. But logic would tell me Ledger is at the top of that chopping block list. That being said, I think the stark difference really is the kind of market which you're going after, and I understand you're positioning Ngrave like an Apple versus an Android, right? And let's say as a guy who spent 10 years dedicated to Apple and to Android and has now and basically shifted to Apple because I was building an app, I can really appreciate the differences. But at the end of the day, there's still the Android market out there. So do you have some kind of like retail product, some vision for a retail product that's, you know, still cost effective but maintains similar security elements and standards which Ngrave currently offers?
Yeah, so first of all, it's interesting that you speak about Android because let's say if you see a touchscreen wallet, a cold wallet, they're all using Android as an operating system.
It's a pie.
And that is one of the biggest honeypots for attacks.
For sure.
We build our own OS from scratch. We have a secure operating system. So everything we did was from the perspective always of security first. And it takes longer for us to develop things because we have to, you know, go through secure code and so on. So we could be 10 times faster if we do it on Android, but we'd also be 10 times less secure.
Absolutely.
And given that that's our first core value, that's the route we're taking. At the same time, if you put R0 next to an iPhone, I've tried it myself and I keep trying it with the new versions. If you would tap on the screen of both, R0 is on faster. So
because you optimize the OS and it's efficient, so the end result at the end of it is better. But you're absolutely right. People don't appreciate. Like, listen, if you're trying to intercept a conversation between two people and you understand the language, then you know what to look for, right? If you're listening to two people talking and you've never heard this language before, then you can't make sense of it, and that's the benefit of a custom OS at the end of the day, right? But it must have taken couple of years, I imagine, to stabilize an OS.
We started in 2018, so just when Bitcoin did a nosedive from like 20k to, in the end, 3k in that cycle.
Whoopty.
That was the first cycle through which we built the product. We haven't had a lot of luck in that sense, because in 2020 when we had to set up the physical supply chain, and that was COVID. So the moment we started that, I think COVID started around the same time, and from my house I had to start doing that, which was double as challenging. And then by the time that we had it set up, which was by end of 2021, we started shipping our first pre-orders that we had. Then the second bear market more or less started. So we've lived through, for us it's really like 5-6 years of building and surviving as well. And now it's like, okay, now we're ready, we can scale, we have institutional that's actually already running, but of course more secretive than the B2C side. And
the world is waking up.
We see a lot of growth possible now. And even when we speak with some of the biggest asset managers in the world that we talk to, then we see that for them also this idea of cold wallets is extremely crucial. But they have seen it as a very early market in the last few years. Like Ledger was super early to it. Even we were early to it, and we were 4 years at least later than Ledger and Trezor. But still, it's an early stage market. And what's important for Ngrave is also we are not cold wallet makers, although we made a very good one. We are end-to-end security experts and providers. So we don't just give you a cold wallet and then say, now set up your own infrastructure, we help you. And if we need to invent new things along the line, we will do that. That's our blood. So
interesting.
You will always see in every aspect of, let's say, even the retail wallet, that we have looked into it, we've optimized it, we made it better. I was on the plane yesterday and I was reading up about the HTC Exodus wallet from a while back.
I remember that.
And how they were doing Shamir secret sharing, and that it was really bad the way that they did it, and Ledger Dungeon hacked it, and it's years ago, so in the meantime it's probably stable, but it was interesting to see that, because you could say, okay, I'm going to send a shard here and there and people can help me recover, but if you do it in the wrong way, then
sharding is I think technology that I've seen from so many different perspectives now. Like I think it's great for some things and it's terrible for others, but it's like you say, it's all about the detail, right? So who's holding the shards at the end of the day, and how are they being distributed, right? And what's the protocol managing that, right? So, but that's a good segue actually to you mentioned something earlier about I'm holding an Ngrave wallet, I pass away, I need to be able to sort of give my Ngrave wallet or give access to that to someone else. Do they do that? Do my loved ones do that specifically through the plates which they're left with, or do they? Is there two shards? You have my knowledge.
Yeah, so
I'm thinking I should arrest her. I'm thinking I should arrest all night long. She putting me to the test. Got a lot on. I'm trying to take out the rest. Sitting on my lines, sending them but the best. Hey girl, the cutest, the icy. So bad I'm like.
It's 90% of the market that we can help them get into the right direction, which is the dream of Satoshi: no intermediaries, decentralized, trustless. The practical implementation of that doesn't really look good today, but that's still for us also our vision. So you could go as simple as, okay, I'm giving you one of the two plates, and when I pass away, here is the setup of how to get the other one. It could be that for example you say, I'm going to add an ultimate beneficiary to my name with a third-party platform like Escrow.
East and the west, I'm racking up on my breath.
They show
Power
my
on
deeds.
me, I'm feeling just like a Tesla. Too much trees, smoking, making my chest hurt.
Then
Girl
you
on
can
me,
release
I'm
it.
thinking I should
That's an
arrest her.
Another option is that
Thinking I
you
should
have
arrest
different
all night
biometrics
long. She
set
put
up
me
in
to
the
the
device.
test.
So
Got
you
a
could
lot
say,
on. I'm
you
trying
can
to take out the
already
rest. Couldn't on my lines, sending them but the best.
So
Hey girl, the cutest,
and
the
then
icy.
when we go into the direction
So
of
bad
actually
I'm like,
secret sharing,
icy.
like
Gotta keep
sharding,
like
things like
Leon,
that,
and I'm like icy.
there it becomes
So beautiful, like
also,
in my dreams.
let's say,
Hey boo, hollering at you.
how do you implement it the
Nah,
right
boo,
way?
I'm just trying to be
Like
your
if you look at
boo, so
Ledger's
I gotta
recover,
do just see how that
it
ass
was
move.
done in a
So
way that was
beautiful,
very
sorry.
questionable. First
Yo,
thing
B,
was of
I'm
course,
making the
okay,
next move.
so
No
you could
me,
always
I'm
extract
not
my
just
private
move.
keys from the
No
very
seats,
beginning.
I'm setting the right
Yes,
move.
we
All
could
these other
get
rappers,
to
they
trust
trust me,
us.
just fool.
Second, they
Hey, I'm
take
talking
out
to
the
just
key
you.
we don't really know what the encryption keys that they use in the sense of do they take one that they know or not.
Hey girl, you wanna be my world?
They're not supposed to
Get
do
shower
that.
time.
And then they shard it out to three
I'm trying to make you my night
different
girl.
parties.
I'ma treat
They're
you
one
right
of
like
them
I'm a night girl.
that they have
Hey
decided
fam, I'm trying to
that
be
you
your
know.
man.
So there's so many risks in that model.
God's plan.
And from our perspective, it's always the user needs to be
Around the world,
So the
right?
beauty about Zero is one, it's fully offline, so there is no way that we can pull something out of your device. Second, you have a screen. You can show a QR code on that screen with an encrypted shard, and you decide where you show it. Like if you say, even if it would be your bank, my bank can have a shard. They will never know my full key, but they can help me recover. So you can use the trust that exists in CFI and centralized finance. Your bank has been around for many years. Let's say if you talk about the BlackRock, they've been there for all the crises that we know of. And you say, BlackRock, you cannot have my money, but you can have the recovery shard, and you can get paid for that. Another shard, you can give it to your Google Clouds. You can give one. You can decide where you.
The point is that you've created many different options, right? And that is, I think, what good security companies usually lack. They usually think, okay, this is the way, it's the ultimate way, and that's it. But they don't take into account the user experience at the end of the day, and the user needs, and essentially edge cases. And that's what it is, right? It's like if you're developing a platform for a single case, your dev time would be 10% of what it was now, but 90% of what you spend development time on is edge cases, right? It's this person needs this because of this, and this person needs this because of that. And that's what I think people don't fail to appreciate, at least when it comes to building good software, right? So I'm very happy to see you sort of taking these things into account and building through to your pillars, right? Which was security, simplicity, and sexy.
End-to-end security and the sexy as well.
Exactly.
And also there, because when I explain to you the graphene, it comes across as, okay, that's an abstract concept, but our users, our customers love it. And
you explain graphene, sorry.
So graphene is our material. The backup solution is.
Sorry, I'm thinking about the semiconductor plastic.
No. We would love to do that, but it's extremely expensive.
Yeah, so I hear.
And then you would have a backup, but your backup would be worth $500.
Yeah.
So
we leave that for the Saudi edition.
Exactly. And we actually currently internally have a 24-karat gold wallet.
There you go.
So we're experimenting with that. So, in the end, this device is beautiful, and you can brand it for your community. And we also do it for asset managers, like they want their own fully white labeled UX UI, it's no longer ours version of this device, which obviously makes a lot of sense. So we do that as well. And 85% of our sales is always the wallet and the backup. So users really love the concept of the graphene stainless steel backup. It's good that we build it.
It is. No, it's a cool offering. I like it. I haven't exactly tried the tech out, but of course, sort of been following Ngrave for a while, even since I think before we met. So it's good that happened. It means you guys are onto something. And the fact that you're still around means that something is something good, right? Because you've survived a couple of cullings, as we discussed earlier. I think the ultimate challenge for wallets as a whole is to be able to have a first-time user, not even a first time. Let's repeat this. Let's say the ultimate challenge of any wallet manufacturer, whether it's hard or soft, cold or whatever, is for the user to be able to effect the transaction without. So I've spoken to people from sort of all over. We're talking about digital asset managers for $100 million funds. We're talking about techies who've been in blockchain for almost a decade. And there's always that similarity. There's always that heart-wrenching moment of, listen, am I doing this right? Am I sending this transaction out right? And I realized that there's a similar experience with the fiat world, right? When you're sending a bank transfer out to somebody for the first time, especially if it's a different country, there's a little bit of that worry, but that angst is immensely more prevalent in the blockchain. And that, I think, is the ultimate challenge of any wallet in this sort of trying to take on this industry. So how do you see that challenge, and what do you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a user of my own product, of course. We're actually that honest that I bought it myself on the website. So actually, while I have many demo devices, but I just buy it myself from there, and I use it, of course. So I can tell you from my personal experience that when you sign a transaction on Zero and you scan that QR code with the signature, it's the best feeling in the world, because you are doing it from an offline device. There is no way to connect it, and so it's like this offline peace of mind idea. It's really there, and the only way that you can understand it is by on doing it. And the beauty about, let's say, the process, so you already have your addresses on the app. So you decided you want to send a transaction somewhere. Let's say I send a transaction to you, and I define how many Bitcoin that needs to be, and then that creates a QR code that I can scan with my Zero, with my device. Your app is online. Your app can always be hacked. There will always be a way to do that. You can only go as far, and it's a cat and mouse game. But with the Zero, you can scan that QR code. You will see on the screen literally, is it still from the same address to the same other address? Is it the right amount? And if so, you sign a transaction. Then you create a signature, which is again a QR code. Your phone can scan that. If your phone would be compromised and change that signature, nothing will happen, because wrong signatures are not accepted. So only the right.
But technically, it can always take the right signature and change the forwarding address, but that will be a vulnerability in the app.
Yeah, but I mean, the transaction, the signature itself, it's cryptography, right?
Absolutely.
If you can compromise that part, so you can. If you only have the signature, there is no way to,
Sure, no, of course. If you only have the signature, sure, but there's still, like, if you're using some kind of software, there's obviously vulnerabilities at that level as well.
But on the app side, always.
Absolutely.
So they could do a copy, like the copy paste attack. I forgot what the name is, but suddenly there's your address. You copy paste it, and it's another address.
Yeah.
That can happen on your phone, but on your device, you will see that it's the sign what you see. It's the verification step that's crucial. So you have to check if everything that you're about to sign is still what the transaction that you set up.
Exactly.
And if you do that,
and that's I think the sort of what makes this so scary and so complex, right? Because it's like sort of, we can both agree that nothing is unhackable. That's great, and the fact that we can agree to that very easily, on top of the fact that you seem to be, let's say, relatively well versed in say, the concepts of cryptography, mean that we can come to an agreement and say, hey, listen, everything is hacked. I know I'm taking a risk by making this transaction, but I accept that the risk is so minimal if I do the things right, that whatever, it's all good. I can go walking on the street, I can fall and break my teeth. You know what I mean? So, but even with that kind of knowledge, I don't know about you, but even with that kind of knowledge, I still find myself with that same kind of feeling. And like I said, I haven't used Ngrave wallet. I have another sort of favorite wallet of mine, which I won't mention now. But I haven't tried Ngrave yet. Maybe that will change. But even though I know the risk and I can understand it, I can see it from different angles, and I can in some ways quantify it. still scares the crap out of me. You know, like sending a blockchain transfer, I still need to look 3 or 4 times. I still need to double check. There's still that sort of extra step from a user perspective that we don't have with a bank. And I have knowledge. So imagine I didn't have knowledge and I didn't know what's going on. Imagine that worry is going to be heightened, right? And that's the biggest challenge, I think, for self-custody transactions. I don't think we have a solution for it now, but
well, agreed. But if you then look at, let's say you keep it on a third-party platform, and then you accept the risk that you don't own.
For sure, self-custody is always better. Always better. I would much rather keep my funds in a wallet in which I hold my keys than in an insured centralized exchange in the best jurisdiction ever. I don't care, I don't trust it, right? So not your keys, not your crypto. Absolutely. But you're sort of like admirably saying that simplicity and user experience is one of your core 3 pillars, which in the security world they're conflicting things, right? And it seems like you've managed to like find some sort of harmonic equilibrium between the 3. But the next phase is how do we solve that angst, right? And you mentioned one example which I think would make me feel better. Again, I haven't used Ngrave, but you mentioned that I need to look at the plate, I need to physically push, and that there's haptic feedback that lets me know I'm doing something right, which in the blockchain industry is kind of like unheard of, So that's something, and it's something that the average person knows and understands. They know when they touch something and it vibrates, or touch something and it lets you know, yes, we've accepted this input. And so I think you've really made strides towards this problem. I don't think any company in the world has solved this yet, and I think it's something that was sort of the next bastion for wallets. But
well, it's of course it's in the mind of the beholder. It's psychological. Because let's say with the zero, or let's say differently, like your point of convenience versus security, it's a spectrum. You cannot have both at the maximum. Like if you really want to have convenience, you just use your phone and you sign transactions from there. That's much easier than having an air-gapped wallet and connecting with it. Interacting with it. So a good question could be, will the hardware wallets disappear at some stage in the future? But then you have to ask yourself the question, do I want to walk around with my house deed, with my $500,000 in the bank, with everything I own on my phone, in my phone, on my purse?
No way.
So there is a part that needs convenience, and that's like, I'm gonna go to the store and I can pay with a finger tap, whatever. But I also have a house that I don't need to carry around with me every day. How am I going to? So every let's say context has its own required level of security, and we have tried to make the stuff that sort of needs to be kept the safest. We've tried to find a way to make that, of course, safe first, and then still very accessible. And to also indeed this feeling that you described, how can we make that disappear? And the moment you would sign a $1 million transaction with our device in that setup, that's the moment that it clicks in your head. Okay, this is next level. It's not connected. My grandma could use this thing. But yeah, it's not for everyone. Not everybody will adopt that.
Of course,
which is not. I mean, that's totally fine.
Exactly. No, you're serving a particular market at the end of the day, and hey, I mean, I might probably even be a customer. And I think that let's say I'm not religious, but I'd say in many ways you're doing God's work, right? Because you're literally aiming at solving one of the biggest problems in the crypto space, which is custody. If you ask me, it's custody.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and then now that we're going into institutional, for us it's really we are your preferred partner, no matter where you are in that track. If you cannot do anything because you're regulated and you're not allowed, you can already tell your users, we can signal to them that you're crypto friendly by saying, look, we partnered with Ngrave. If you want to have Bitcoin, keep it with them because they do it well. But if you want to have a self-custody platform where your users can log on and they have keys and they can just tell some people that can have shards, and ultimately they get upsold to a cold wallet as well. Possible. If you want to be a full custodian as a bank, we can help you with that as well.
And one other question about a use case. If I'm a company and I want multiple signatures on transaction thresholds, let's say, for example, is that something which I can do if I buy multiple devices?
Yeah, so that's sort of the next phase now. First was, okay, we've been in the market for 2 years on retail.
Okay.
We did that deliberately, and our goal was actually to, use that time to get all the feedback, make a better device, get the full upgrade, like fingerprint sensitivity, the battery life, all those things in the beginning are still a bit late hardware, of course. So we've now spent more than 2 years in implementing those learnings. We also have 2 years in the market for people who try to break it. And our goal was always then with that package to be able to go to B2B and say, look, that has been battle tested for this. And when they test it, it works perfectly. In reality, a very large asset manager came to us more than a year ago already because they saw that we have EAL7 security. And for them, they understand what it is. They have trillions of dollars to manage. So how could we work together? So our B2B track was therefore very accelerated. And in the near future, you will have this layer of governance, the SME kind of segment. We think there's still a huge hole in the market there, for example. But also for institutions, we have a perfect solution.